the phrase Mharoretz often distinguished the general Sishazenri from governmental or priestly officials. 2K11 14, 18-20 J1 18 34 19 37 2 44 21 S7 27 Dar 9 6 Zek 7 5. However, it is evident that it embraced not merely the poor laboring class, but also included persons of means, since Ezekiel, after decrying the injustices committed by greedy prophets, priests, and princes, inveighs against the people of the land who have carried on a scheme of defrauding and have done a tearing away in robbery, and the afflicted one and the poor one they have maltreated, and the alien resident they have defrauded without justice. S22 25-29. To pay the heavy duties imposed by Pharaoh Necho, King Jehoiakim exacted the silver and the gold from the people of the land by means of taxation. Thus the Amharmiddle.Oretz that struck down the conspirators against King Amen and made Josiah king, or that later made Jehoahaz king, were no so-called rebel element. 2 Kai 23 30, 35 21 24. When Nebuchadnezzar conquered Judah, 60 men of the people of the land were included along with the high court officials who were taken to Riblah and executed, these 60 doubtless being among the more prominent or leading citizens. 2 Kai 25 19-21. Of course, the phrase Mharoretz did embrace the poor and lowly citizens as well, and the king of Babylon designated a number of such to remain in Judah, as he had done earlier in Jerusalem. 2 Kai 24 14 25 12 J 40 7 52 15 16. In post-exilic times Ezra and Nehemiah condemned the wrong practice of the returned exiles in mingling with the peoples of the land, marrying their women, allowing them to carry on commerce within the city on the Sabbath, and learning their detestable practices. Es 9 11 10 2 11 Ne 10 28 31. The expression here referred to the surrounding non-Israelite peoples specified at Ezra 9 1 2, and the reason for separating from them was not because of any low social or economic position on their textoi acute miritra longo. Perez used the 601 sinners, and he showed affection for the people who were thrown about like sheep without a shepherd. Mount 9 13, 36. Thus the sense of Mharoretz changed from one of general respect to one of religious opprobrium, much as the Latin term paganus, from which the English word pagan is derived. Pagan originally meant simply a dweller in a rural community, but since those country people were often the last to be converted, it came to be used by city dwellers as applying to all who did not adopt their professed Christian beliefs. In a similar way the term heathen at first meant simply one who lived out on the heath or field. Ppe or. In the account of King Balak's efforts to get the prophet Balaam to curse Israel, the third vantage point to which Balaam was conducted is said to be the top of Peor, which looks toward Jeshimon. New 23 28. From here Balaam could see the tents of Israel spread about on the plains of Moab below. New 22 1 24 2. Some consider Peor to be the abbreviated form of the name Beth Peor. De 4 46. However, this latter place is evidently a town, included as such in the territorial assignment of Reuben. Jos 13 15 16, 20. Others, therefore, consider Peor to be a summit, or peak, and suggest that the town of Beth Peor may have been so named because of being situated on the slopes of such a summit. Both Peor and Beth Peor appear to be connected with the pagan worship of the Baal of Peor. New 25 1-3, 18 31 16 Jos 22 17, and it is possible that the height of Peor was a center of such immoral worship. See Baal No. 4. Baal of Peor. Balaam was first taken to Bamoth Baal, then to the top of Pisgah, and finally to the top of Peor. New 22 41 23 14 28. The direction of movement is from S to N and seems to indicate that Peor was N of Pisgah and Mount Nebo. Based on the testimony of Eusebius and Jerome, of the 3rd and 4th centuries CE. The summit of Pir is suggested to have been one of the peaks bordering the Wadi Husban. See Beth Pir. Perazim, Mount P. Razim breakings through. A mount seemingly referred to elsewhere as Baal Perazim. Issa 28. 21. See Baal Perazim. Perez Perez. Daniel used this Aramaic word when interpreting the handwriting on the wall, men, tekel and parzan. Dar 5. 25, 28. Dr. Judah Slotky points out that the handwriting means a mana, a shekel and half shekels. Cincino Books of the Bible, edited by A. Cohen, London, 1951. See also Peake's Commentary on the Bible, edited by M. Black and H. H. Rowley, London, 1964, p. 596. Since Perez is the singular number of Parzian, it would mean a half shekel. In the Prophet's interpretation of Perez, he employed two other Aramaic words spelled with the same three consonants, but vocalized differently. Perez, your kingdom has been divided Sath and given to the Medes and the Persians for Ras. Thus the inspired explanation included a double play on the word Perez and the root meaning divide. The subsequent events of that night proved the accuracy of the interpretation. See Parzan. Peresh, a son of Mecca and Mecca in the tribe of Manasseh. 1 Ch 7. 14, 16. Perez rupture. Perennial rupture. One of the twin sons of Judah by his daughter-in-law Tamar. At birth, Perez's brother Zerah started to emerge first but withdrew, and Perez came out first, producing a perennial rupture of Tamar. GE 38. 24-30. Perez retained priority over his brother and is always listed ahead of him, and his house became the more famous of the two. Ru 4. 12. Perez and his own two sons, Hezron and Hamul, are listed among those of Jacob's lineage coming into Egypt, where all three became heads of individual families in Judah. GE 46. 8, 12. Aside from this, no personal information about him is recorded. The references to Perez are primarily genealogical, the bulk of Judah's genealogy is being traced through Perez. 1 Ch 2. O textoi acute miritra longo, perfection 602. Perfection. The thought of perfection is expressed through Hebrew terms drawn from such verbs as Lam perfect compare as 27. 4. Shah Lam come to completion compare Issa 60. 20. And Tar Mam be completed, come to perfection compare PS 102. 27. Issa 18. 5. In the Christian Greek scriptures the words os adjective, otes noun, and o verb are used similarly, conveying such ideas as bringing to completeness or full measure. 8. 14. 2 Co 12. 9. Ches 1. 4. Being full grown, adult, or mature. 1 Co 14. 20. Heb 5. 14. Having attained the appropriate or appointed end, purpose, or goal. 19. 28. PHP 3. 12. Importance of correct viewpoint. For correct Bible understanding one must not make the common error of thinking that everything called perfect is so in an absolute sense, that is, to an infinite degree, without limitation. Perfection in this absolute sense distinguishes only the Creator, Jehovah God. Because of this Jesus could say of his Father, nobody is good, except one, God. Mr. 10. 18. Jehovah is incomparable in his excellence, worthy of all praise, supreme in his superb qualities and powers, so that his name alone is unreachably high. PS 148. 1-13. Job 36. 3, 4, 26. 37. 16, 23, 24. PS 145. 2-10, 21. Moses extolled God's perfection, saying, For I shall declare the name of Jehovah. Do you attribute greatness to our God? The rock, perfect is his activity, for all his ways are justice. A God of faithfulness, with whom there is no injustice. Righteous and upright is he. The 32. 3, For all of God's ways, words, and law are perfect, refined, free from flaw or defect. PS 18. 30. 19. 7. Chas 1. 17. 25. There is never any just cause for objection, criticism, or fault-finding regarding him or his activity. Rather, praise is always due him. Job 36. 22-24. Other perfection relative. Perfection of any other person or thing, then, is relative, not absolute. Compare PS 119. 96. That is, a thing is perfect according to, or in relation to, the purpose or end for which it is appointed by its designer or producer, or the use to which it is to be put by its receiver or user. The very meaning of perfection requires that there be someone who decides when completion has been reached, what the standards of excellence are, what requirements are to be satisfied, and what details are essential. Ultimately, God the Creator is the final arbiter of perfection, the standard setter, in accord with his own righteous purposes and interests. Row 12. 2. See Jehovah, God of moral standards. As an illustration, the planet Earth was one of God's creations, and at the end of 6 creative days of work toward it, God pronounced the results very good. Ge 1. 31. It met his supreme standards of excellence, hence it was perfect. Yet he thereafter assigned man to subdue it, evidently in the sense of cultivating the earth and making the whole planet, and not just Eden, the garden of God. Ge 1. 28. 2. 8. The tent, or tabernacle, built in the wilderness at God's command and according to his specifications, served as a type or small-scale prophetic model of a greater and more perfect tent, the most holy of which is Jehovah's heavenly residence, into which Christ Jesus entered as high priest. Job 9. 11-14, 23, 24. The earthly tent was perfect in that it satisfied God's requirements, served its appointed end. Yet when God's purpose concerning it was accomplished, it ceased to be used and passed out of existence. The perfection of that which it represented was of a far higher type. The city of Jerusalem with its hill of Zion was called the perfection of prettiness. Bar 2. 15. PS 50. 2. This does not mean that every minute aspect of the city's physical appearance was supremely attractive, but rather, it relates to its use by God, the city's beauty resulting from the splendor that he conferred upon it, making it the capital of his anointed kings and the cytotextoi acute miritra longo, perfection 603. Holy on Atonement Day with sacrificial blood to save completely those whom he served, as Hebrews 7. 11, 18-28 explains. Although the offering of sacrifices through the Aaronic priesthood maintained a right standing for the people before God, it did not completely or perfectly relieve them of consciousness of sin. The apostle refers to this in saying that the atonement sacrifices could not make those who approach perfect, that is, as regards their conscience. Heb 10. 1-4. Compare Heb 9. 9. The high priest was unable to provide the ransom price needed for a true redemption from sin. Only Christ's enduring priestly service and effective sacrifice do accomplish this. Heb 9. 14. 10. 12-22. The law was holy, good, fine. Row 7. 12, 16. And anyone who could fully live up to this perfect law would prove himself a perfect man, worthy of life. Law 18. 5. Row 10. 5. Year 3. 12. For this very reason the law brought condemnation, rather than life, not because the law was not good, but because of the imperfect, sinful nature of those under it. Row 7. 13-16. Year 3. 10-12, 19-22. The perfect law made their imperfection and sinfulness especially evident. Row 3. 19, 20. Year 3. 19, 22. The law in this respect also served to identify Jesus as the Messiah, for he alone was able to keep the law in every respect, proving himself a perfect man. Job 8. 46. 2 Co 5. 21. Heb 7. 26. The Bible's perfection. The sacred scriptures constitute a perfect message from God, refined, pure, and true. PS 12. 6. 119. 140, 160. PR 30. 5. Joe 17. 17. Though thousands of years of copying have evidently brought some variations from the original writings, these variations are admittedly very minor, so that, even if our present copies and translations are not absolutely flawless, the divine message conveyed is. Individuals may find the Bible a more difficult book to read than many, one requiring greater effort and concentration. They may find much they do not understand. Some critical persons may insist that, to be perfect, the Bible should be free of even superficial differences or what appear, according to their standards, to be inconsistencies. None of these things, however, detract from the perfection of the sacred scriptures. For the real gauge of its perfection is its measuring up to the standards of excellence set by Jehovah God, its accomplishing the end or purpose that He, as its true author, appointed for it, as well as its being free from falsehood, as the published word of the God of truth. The Apostle Paul points up the perfection of the holy writings in saying, all scripture is inspired of God and beneficial for teaching, for reproving, for setting things straight, for disciplining in righteousness, that the man of God may be fully competent, completely equipped for every good work. 2t3. 15-17 What the Hebrew Scriptures did for the nation of Israel when they observed them, what the completed Scriptures did for the Christian congregation in the first century, and what the Bible can do for persons in the present, is convincing proof of its qualities as an ideal instrument of God to accomplish His purpose. Compare 1 Co 1. 18. The whole tenor of the Scriptures, including the teachings of God's Son, is to the effect that the gaining of understanding of God's purposes, the doing of His will, and the attaining of salvation to life are dependent primarily upon the individual's heart. 1 Ch 16. 7. 1 Ch 28. 9. PR 4. 23. 21. 2. Mount 15. 8. Lu 8. 5-15. Row 10. 10 The Bible is unique in its ability to discern thoughts and intentions of the heart, revealing what the person really is. Heb 4. 12, 13 It is clear from the Scriptures that God has not made knowledge of Himself something to be acquired without effort. Compare PR 2. 1-14. 8. 32-36. Isra 55. 6-11. Mount 7. 7, 8. It is also evident that God has caused His purposes to be revealed to humble ones and hidden from haughty ones, because to o textoi acute miritra longo, perfection 604 He assures that His word will have certain success in the fulfillment of His purpose. Isra 55. 8-11. PS 119. 89 That is what perfection means, as the definitions in the initial portion of this article show. Perfection and free will. The foregoing information aids in understanding how perfect creatures of God could become disobedient. To view this as incompatible with perfection is to ignore the meaning of the term, substituting a personal concept that goes contrary to fact. God's intelligent creatures are granted free moral agency, the privilege and responsibility of making a personal decision as to the course they will take. 30. 19, 20. Joes 24. 15 It is evident that it was the case with the first human pair, so that their devotion to God could be subject to test. GE 2. 15-17. 3. 2, 3 As their Maker, Jehovah knew what He wanted of them, and from the Scriptures it is clear that He wanted, not an automatic, virtually mechanical obedience, but worship and service that sprang from hearts and minds motivated by genuine love. Compare to 30. 15, 16. 1 Ch 28. 9. 29. 17. Job 4. 23, 24. If Adam and his wife had lacked the ability to choose in this matter, they would not have met God's requirements. They would not have been complete, perfect, according to His standards. It must be remembered that perfection as it relates to humans is a relative perfection, limited to the human sphere. Though created perfect, Adam could not go beyond the limits assigned him by his Creator. He could not eat dirt, gravel, or wood without suffering ill effects. If he tried to breathe water instead of air, he would drown. Similarly, if he allowed his mind and heart to feed on wrong thoughts, this would lead to entertaining wrong desires and finally bring sin and death. Ches 1. 14, 15. Compare GE 1. 29. Mount 4. 4. That the creature's individual will and choice are determining factors readily becomes evident. If we were to insist that a perfect man could not take a wrong course where a moral issue was involved, should we not also logically argue that an imperfect creature could not take a right course where such moral issue was involved? Yet some imperfect creatures do take a right course on moral issues involving obedience to God, even choosing to suffer persecution rather than change from such a course, while at the same time others deliberately engage in doing what they know is wrong. Thus not all wrong actions can be excused by human imperfection. The individual's will and choice are deciding factors. In the same way, it was not human perfection alone that would guarantee right action by the first man but, rather, the exercise of his own free will and choice as motivated by love for his God and for what was right. PR 4. 23. The first sinner and the king of Tyre. Human sin and imperfection were, of course, preceded by sin and imperfection in the spirit realm, as Jesus' words at John 8. 44 and the account in chapter 3 of Genesis reveal. The dirge recorded at Ezekiel 28. 12-19, though directed to the human king of Tyre, evidently parallels the course taken by the spirit son of God who first sinned. The pride of the king of Tyre, his making himself a god, his being called a cherub, and the reference to Eden, the garden of God, certainly correspond to biblical information concerning Satan the devil, who became puffed up with pride, is linked to the serpent in Eden, and is called the god of this system of things. 1t3. 6. GE 3. 1-5, 14, 15. Re 12. 9. 2 Co 4. 4. The anonymous king of Tyre, residing in the city claiming to be perfect in prettiness, was himself full of wisdom and perfect adjective related to Heb. Kamiddle.lal in beauty, and faultless Heb. Tarmiddle.mim in his ways from his creation onward until unrighteousness was found in him. As 27. 3. 28. 12, 15 The first or direct application of the dirge in Ezekiel may be to the line of Tyrian rulers rather than o textoi acute miritra longo, perfection 605 since all were descendants of the sinner Adam and hence sinners. It is clear that such men were faultless and blameless in the sense of measuring up fully to God's requirements for them, requirements that took into account their imperfection and disability. Compare Mic 6. 8. Even as a potter would not expect the same quality when molding a vase from common clay as he would when forming one from special refined clay, so Jehovah's requirements take into consideration the weakness of imperfect humans. PS 103. 10-14. Issa 64. 8 Though committing errors and wrongs, because of their fleshly imperfection, such faithful men nevertheless manifested a complete Heb. Shalmiddle.lem heart toward Jehovah. 1K 11. 4. 15. 14. 2K 20. 3. 2Ch 16. 9 Thus, within the limits possible for them to attain, their devotion was complete, sound, satisfying the divine requirements in their case. Since God a judge was pleased with their worship, no human or spirit creature could rightly find fault with their service to him. Compare Lu 1. 6. Heb 11. 4-6.